In the clade Tetrapoda, there is the genus Nectaris, with the most common form being N. maculosus, which is commonly known as the mudpuppy. Mudpuppies are strictly aquatic amphibians, which differ from other amphibians due to the fact that they do not metamorphose, which is a term known as neoteny, where larval characteristics persist into adulthood. The mudpuppy is found throughout the eastern U.S. on beds of streams and rivers, but thrives in any body of water that is suitable for reproduction. Looking at the external anatomy of the Nectaris, we can distinctly see how it is an evolutionary link from life in water to life on land, due to possessing features that resemble fish and also features that resemble derived tetrapods. The external anatomy indicates the mudpuppy as an evolutionary link from water to land. The skin contains mucus glands along with granular glands with poison as a defense mechanism. Their skin is one of 3 ways that they respire. They also have paired gills and ventral lungs. It is clear that they have segmented axial muscles along the trunk of the body, which relates the Nectaris to its fish ancestors. In addition, there is also regionalization of the vertebrae into cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral, and caudal regions. The trunk vertebrae have zygapophyses that interlock, which assists the Nectaris transportation, using their limbs to walk along the substrate of their fluvial ecosystems. The vertebral column runs the length of the muscular tail and is comprised of caudal vertebrae with hemal arches, which are much like their fishy ancestors. Their tail is used for rapid S-shaped undulations, which provides thrust for feeding or escape from predators. The eyesight of the Nectaris is poorly developed, but they have a lateral line system for mechanoreception and electroreception.
Taking a look at this animal, you can see how they are linked between the more ancestral condition, which is the aquatic animals, and more derived tetrapods and terrestrial animals. So first, we'll look at the trunk. And if you consider what Jenna said earlier, the trunk is used much in the way a fish uses its body to move, which is through lateral undulations. And interestingly, they've actually retained the same musculature that you see in fish, which is muscles that are divided myomerically along the trunk. And this is then divided into both epaxial and hypaxial portions. And these are homologous to muscles like the intercostals, the iliocostalis, and the transversospinalis in more derived amniotes and such. But then if you look at the girdles of these animals, they actually have musculature that is more indicative of the terrestrial condition. And if we look down here, even though it's more difficult to see because they're such small muscles, they have many of the same muscles that even mammals have. So if you look here, there is a latissimus dorsi right here. They possess a dorsalis scapulae right here. And then a procoricohumeralis right here. Now, despite the fact that they have many muscles that are very similar to those of mammals and such, they do actually retain their cucularis, which is the muscle right here where these two meet. Now, flipping this animal over shows us the ventral side, and the pectoralis is very visible here, and that's very similar to more derived animals as well. They also possess a brachialis complex right here. And one thing that's new in this lineage altogether is the presence of a depressor mandibulae, which is this muscle right here, which then may even be modified further in more derived animals. Because of the placement of the heart, it's inherently difficult to show this in the tiny organism that we're dissecting. So to understand the way the blood flows through these guys is to understand it as kind of a fusion between both fish and more derived tetrapods. Firstly, we'll start with the ventricle, which then supplies the afferent arteries, which supply the capillary beds, which oxygenates the blood by the gills, and then they rejoin the efferent arteries, which supply the caudal aorta, which then supplies the rest of the body with oxygenated blood. What's interesting, though, is that there also is a circuit which supplies lungs, which allows for respiration in a gaseous medium. This then supplies a pulmonary vein, which joins the left atria, right here, which mixes with deoxygenated blood from the vena cava in the ventricle right here. Interestingly, they can also breathe through a number of small capillary beds along the surface of their skin, which allows for diffusion as well. So we showed you the picture earlier because it's kind of difficult to see some of the circulatory structures in this animal. So if you can see, the heart sits actually right up here. And I'm going to outline some of these internal structures and just talk about how they're supplied via the efferent arteries. Firstly, you'll see the lungs. Those are the two thin membranous sacs you see right here. And they're supplied via the pulmonary vein, which is a branch off of one of the aortic arches of the efferent arteries. That then feeds into the caudal aorta, which is hard to see up there, but you can see it very well down between where these two ovaries meet, and that's this thick red line you can see right here. So then you can look at the stomach. The stomach feeds down. This is the spleen here. That's the splenic artery you see feeding into the spleen right there. And those are all branches off of the celiaco-mesenteric artery, which is a branch off of the caudal aorta as well, which enters from underneath. It's kind of hard to see. It's right down here. That then branches into the pancreatico-duodenal, and you can see the pancreas is right here. The duodenum of the stomach is right here as well. So that then branches into a number of smaller intestinal and mesenteric arteries, which sit in here and kind of snake through the omental tissue here, which helps to absorb nutrients via the small intestine. Those are those spider-like projections that you see right there. Now, if you follow the caudal artery down, that's the caudal aorta, that then splits into two iliac arteries, which supply both of the hind limbs, and that you can see right there. One of the iliac arteries right there. It's very hard to see. It's a small red artery that starts there, originates there, and then it follows into the outer limb right here.